everyone. Welcome to a special episode of Comms Club Live, Mastering Employee Engagement, Connecting Across Generations. I'm Kelly McNamara, digital events marketer at Staffbase. I'm so excited to be here this lovely Wednesday. It's 10:30 a.m. my time, and I'm here with Imogen Hitchcock. And Imogen, it's
4:30, so just about time for a cup of tea.
I can join you because I have my cup of tea right now as well. But we'll start in a few seconds. Please, everyone, let us know in the chat where you're joining from. Currently, I'm in, it's a little bit foggy, Pennsylvania. Imogen, where are you at across the world?
So I'm just north of Lausanne in Switzerland, up in the mountains with all the cows. And as you can see behind me there's a little bit of sunshine trying to come through and give us something that looks like summer, but it's not doing its best job at the moment.
And Switzerland will get warmer as the months go on, I'm assuming?
It depends if we're going to have a nice summer or not, but normally July, August, it will get up to, I don't know, about 34 in Celsius, and I have no idea what that is in Fahrenheit.
Oh, I don't know either.
Yeah, I'm going to guess and say 100.
Okay,
maybe someone in the chat can tell us, because I have no idea what the math is.
Please let us know. I have family over in England, and I heard that it's not the best summer. I heard that it's a very rainy summer right now.
Yes, my parents are complaining a lot about a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and not a lot of sunshine. But if you live in an island, that's what you get.
Yeah, you have to make the best of it. But great. So yeah, let us know where you're joining from, and while we're waiting. Oh, sorry, my little went. While we're waiting for everyone to join, Imogen, if you can give us a bit about your background and let the audience know a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Kelly. As you can see from my name tag, my name is Imogen Hitchcock. I've been working in communications and specifically focusing on the internal side of things for about 2 decades now. I like to think I've done most things. So I've been in the public sector, I've been in the private sector, I've worked for agency, I've worked in-house, I now have my own consultancy. But the great thing about this job is it continues to surprise me. And there is always something that comes along that's different and something exciting to get your teeth into. I think my purpose, or I see my purpose, as helping people build influence and inspire action through the stories that they tell. I think if you ask my friends, they would tell you I'm a bit of a problem solver and a bit of a planner. I'm very curious and I love to ask questions, even mostly the ones that no one else wants to ask. But I believe that if we can, as communicators, if we can transform that kind of day-to-day into stories that engage and inspire and motivate, then we can start to build teams and have customers who are as passionate about what we do as we are.
I love that. And, in hindsight of this episode, we're talking about, connecting all different employees, all different workforces and inspiring them. So I guess, it's a perfect way to kind of dive right in. We're so excited to get, your insight on this topic. As it's June now. June is usually a time for when there's new employees, right? New college graduates entering the workforce, and entering a workforce where you have many different generations in some cases. So Imogen, in your opinion, what are some common challenges? Let's start there. Like, what do you think are some common challenges that you've seen when trying to, bridge different generational gaps in a workforce?
I think it's really important to sort of step back and set the scene a little bit. And remember that in any one workplace, we could have up to 4 different generations all working there at the same time. So we've got our baby boomers who are sort of over the age of 60 now. They value loyalty and work ethic and love hierarchy. They're approaching retirement and they may be in our sort of senior leadership roles. We then have Gen X, who are between 44 and about 59, and they're very self-reliant, very adaptable, and often act as a bridge between baby boomers and the rest of the other generations. We then have millennials, of which I am one, so 28 to 43, and they really make up the bulk of our workforce at the moment. They're purpose-driven, they like flexibility, they like work-life balance, they are well represented in that really important middle management role in an organization. And then, as you say, we've got the newest cohort, which is our Gen Z coming in. They're up to 27 years old, and they're just coming into work for the first time or maybe a second job. And they're keen on flexible and meaningful work. And they really want to advance quite fast in an organization. And so I think one of the first challenges that we have is a huge difference in communication style. And how do we overcome this difference? And I think the main way to do this is we need to ask the question. You can do research, right? You can look up and say, how do baby boomers like to be communicated with? What do Gen X and Gen Z want? But I think the only way you'll know for sure for your organization is if you ask the question. So do a communications audit, find out, how do people want to hear information? Who do they want to hear from? What do they want to hear? And once you know that, and you know how your employees like to be talked to, you can use a really blended communication strategy, which takes into account as many of those preferences as possible. I think it's important to remember that no matter which generation we're talking to, there is something about face-to-face communications, which is always going to be that kind of staple element of your toolkit, your comms toolkit. So that's one challenge. I think technology is probably another challenge. And I'm not doing a sort of broad brush sweeping generalization. Those baby boomers, they don't understand tech. It's actually not generational. Very personal. So some people are just really good at taking up new technology, whereas others don't find it as intuitive. So then it comes down to, okay, what are the capabilities within your organization? What do you have to help people get up to speed? Do you have trainings? Do you have mentors? How can we help these range of people all use the same tools that we are? Different people, different generations, all want different working conditions. You may have those who want to work fully remote, who want to be on a beach somewhere calling into their sales calls. You may have those people who have absolutely no choice but to be in a factory or to be on the road. And then you'll have those people in the middle, those people who like to work at home sometimes, like to be in the office for the culture and for the friendships there. So your working policy, and therefore your communications, needs to cater to this very diverse range of people. Have a think about, where people are, where they want to be, where they need to be, and where they perform the best, and try and come up with some kind of a hybrid that takes these all into account. And I think finally the sort of fourth challenge that I see is what we value in work as we grow older. I remember when I first went into work, I was a little bit more idealistic, I think. I was seeking purpose and I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to work in a company whose values aligned with me. But as we get older, different things become more important. Maybe we're starting a family, maybe we're wanting to buy a house, we want to travel the world. So therefore, job security, benefits, all of those become much more important. And again, it all comes down to trying to allow flexibility and choice to get the best out of whoever it is who's working at your organization.
You said so many great valuable points in that. And for our audience, if you have any questions for Imogen throughout this event, please make sure you ask them, because I have so many and I've already had a planning call and I still have so many. But I love actually how you did talk about the working conditions. And I think that is an important challenge to really kind of emphasize, because especially with COVID and how everything's changed, and I'm a millennial, how it started, for me 10 years ago is not how it is now. I was working as an assistant going in the office every single day to now I'm fully remote. So I think that is an interesting concept. And you've mentioned the importance of face-to-face interaction. And I think when it comes to generations, from each generation, from baby boomers to Gen X to Gen Z, there are stereotypes with each generation. And generations kind of can hold stereotypes to other generations as well. And I think when you're missing that face-to-face interaction and getting to know them, how do you think a company should really navigate that? Like, if you have employees that are remote and fully remote, is that something that internal communicators should work on, doing initiatives for that, to build that team bond and between each generation?
I think that's absolutely right. And I think sometimes we forget how important it is to be in an office and to be learning and to watch other people work. I know from my own experience, like being in an office and watching my manager or my senior leaders and how they tackled problems or approached meetings or communicated with their peers, I learned an awful lot from that. And I think that being in the office, especially for those younger generations, is where they can learn a little bit of self-awareness. They can build their EQ, that kind of empathy, and their understanding of their impact on other people. They can get the business acumen that comes with sitting down for a coffee with someone who knows more than you do. And there's also more of a sense of camaraderie and trust if you've managed to talk to that person face to face. I mean, if someone calls you on the phone and you've never met them before, how likely are you to trust them? Whereas if you have seen their face, you've seen them in the office, that trust has started to build. And I think, we should be flexible. We should allow our employees to have a little more leeway in how they work. I think it's inevitable after the fun of COVID. But at the same time, we can't lose that culture and that learning that comes from being a big group of people who are all passionate about the same thing and working towards the same objectives.
100%. And I think it's what you just said, even just building that trust is so important. And it's almost overlooked, right? Because for years, those little kind of key learnings you've had in an office, I guess you've almost taken for granted. Like you said, like sitting down with someone, having a coffee, seeing how they interact with different departments or different colleagues. And I mean, I know, thinking about my own journey, my own professional journey, I mean, there's little things I've learned about how to email certain people. And I've had good mentors who, because we've had that trust, been like, listen, you can't, and I'm not saying I talk inappropriate, but you can't email someone that harsh without a deadline, or if they're coming across like this, you need to navigate like this way. And those little learnings really do build a great culture. And kind of it kind of ties into our second point. We've kind of touched on it, but what do you think is probably, why bridging these generational gaps? Why do you think it's so crucial for an organization to succeed?
I think you touched on it. What we're really talking about here is diversity, right? We're not really talking about different generations. We're talking about a mix of people, different experiences, different backgrounds, different approaches to things. So why does any one company want diversity in their teams? The reason is we want new, different perspectives, because that brings better solutions to challenges because of different experiences and viewpoints. Every generation, every person will approach problem solving, for example, in a different way. And by getting a mixed group together, you're going to complement each other and lead to better solutions. I think it was an HBR study I read, found that diverse teams are 87% better at making decisions. I mean, it's a huge, huge increase just by having those different personalities within a room. I think sometimes it's easier. We all know it's easier for working in a group of people who have the same background, same knowledge as you, same values, same ways of working. It makes it so much easier. But we have to question, is that good for outcomes and is it good for performance? working on a diverse team, working with different generations gets better results because it's harder and because you are made to work so much harder to make it work.
No, that's so true. Sonia has a great question. She wants to know if there's any specific things you've seen internal communicators do, specifically trying to meet the needs of new Gen Z generations coming in, more on a broader scale. So not a one-to-one team comms kind of thing, but have you seen anything done on a broader scale?
It is a great question, Sonia. And sadly, the answer is not really. I work with a number of big organizations, and although they are incredibly conscious of diversity, different generations coming into the workplace, there's nothing specific that they have done. What they have done is they have increased and supplemented what's already been in place to take into account this newest generation. So, for example, where they've had mentoring schemes in place, they've started to maybe think about expanding those mentoring schemes. So instead of your traditional top-down mentoring, I guess, they've started to do reverse mentoring. So the youngest generation is mentoring some of the older, wiser, more experienced people in the team to try and build on those differences and learn from them. I think, it's tempting to say, well, we're going to bring in, I don't know, ping pong tables and beer Friday to get these new generations interested. But I think actually, let's be a little bit more practical about it. Let's think about how can we take these differences and make them work throughout the whole company, learn from them. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if we have strong values, good purpose, great ways of working, then it doesn't matter the generation. Everyone's going to be happy and content to work there.
I love that. And Imogen, I love how you really you don't make it a generational issue, which I think is so important. When you look at it, you have to look back and think of it as more of just a core comms issue you're trying to solve and how you're trying to let employees feel heard. And, I know I've seen it recently at other companies that they're starting to do more of mentorship, but when new hires get hired, they almost have a buddy in the company. And it could be a buddy that's not, in your department. You might not work with them at all in your career, but somebody that you can go and talk to about how to find resources or having meetings with them just to build that camaraderie. And I think I'm starting to see that in some organizations. So, maybe that's what people are leveraging for new generations coming in and trying to bridge that gap as well. But like you said, I think it's so important to really look at the core issue of it as a comms strategy as a whole. And that kind of leads into our next question, actually, which is how do you think organizations can ensure that their message is resonating throughout, all generations, but not really diluting their core message or values they have with the company?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think again, I think that everyone watching this will see very quickly that I am always taking it away from generational and moving it more to fundamental communication skills. So, when we're thinking about resonating across generations, let's change that question and say, well, how do we resonate against all of our employees? How do we get all of our employees to resonate or to connect with a message without diluting what we want to say? And the way normally we think about doing that is, multi-channel communication. So looking back to that audit, which you're all going to do on how people want to get information. So which channels are going to be the best ones to use? Mm-hmm. We also have to remember that, especially from a comms perspective, we have probably heard these messages a million times, if not more. But our employees probably have heard it once, maybe twice, and it's within a deluge of information that they're getting every day from their boss, from their peers, from HR, from IT, from compliance, do your training, etc. So our messages really get lost in there, so we need to keep on repeating them. So think about how we can repurpose our information so that we can make sure there's repetition, but also make sure we're hitting different channels and different ways of receiving that information. So can we I don't know, make a blog post, do a video, do a top 3 things, TikTok style. Maybe someone wants a white paper or someone wants a presentation. There are lots of ways we can tell the same story across different formats. So we're getting that repetition, and we're also using channels that our different generations, different employees like to use. I think if we ensure the basics are there, we're clear, we're concise, we're using language which is made for employees and not the boardroom. Employees want to hear the why. They want it to be in language that they understand. So if we're talking about synergies and multi-purpose pre-dimensional groups who are assessing, et cetera, what does that mean for them? We need to translate this. Let's translate it to the day-to-day. Let's connect the dots for them. And then we can start making sure that message resonates with them.
Yeah, I love that. And I think just how you mentioned, just really listening to your employees and really seeing where they're at. And you've mentioned this in our planning call, and today it's just really providing them with different resources that hit them, right? So if you have an employee who's not great at watching video, you're not going to just be like, well, we're trying to be younger, we're doing all videos or TikToks or whatever. You want to have different resources for your employees. You want to make sure, because I feel like in that sense too, it also makes employees feel like they're heard, they're valued within the company, which, like you said, goes back to for, comms goals you need to keep in mind throughout your strategy. What advice would you give to leaders, and kind of piggybacking off Sonia's great question, but what advice would you give to leaders who are struggling to engage with, younger employees in a meaningful way?
I don't think the answer is going to surprise anyone, but it's about asking the question again. So struggling to engage younger employees, what does that mean? What are we struggling with specifically? Right? It's not just a question of, well, I keep talking and no one's hearing me, no one's listening to me. That's not a problem. We need to sort of ask a couple more questions first. Okay, what is the exact problem? Why aren't they listening? Why aren't they hearing you? Why aren't they doing something, feeling something, thinking something differently? Is it the language you're using? Is it the channel you're using? Is it the topic? Is it the person who's delivering the message? Is that senior leader the right one to deliver that message? Your comms audit, again, is going to be really, really helpful when it comes to data and understanding who employees want to hear from and what kind of messages they need to hear them from. So your leaders is probably going to be very high level, strategic direction, vision. Those middle managers, those millennials, those are going to be absolutely crucial in translating into the what it means for me area. But I think, if leaders can be genuine, can be transparent, can be human in the way in which they communicate, if they can explain the what's in it for me and answer that so what question, then it really doesn't matter who they're talking to, older employees, younger employees, that doesn't matter, because there are some elements of just good, effective communications which are going to bridge any generational divide you have within your employee base.
I agree. And the so what question is so crucial, because no matter what generation, no matter what your age is or what level of seniority you are in a company, you care about the so what. That's what everyone is on everyone's mind. And personally, I love when a leader is so transparent. And I also love a leader who's like, I don't know this tech things, or I don't know this new, and just open about it and open about what generation they're from and how either they're trying to connect with different generations, a younger generation, or they're also just transparent as like, I embrace how you guys learn. I'm not doing that. I'm going to learn through a PowerPoint. But you do you. I think that's important as well.
It is. And, when we're looking at leaders and them communicating to the wider employee base, we have to be very conscious of their own communication style as well, and how they feel comfortable and how they come across the best. There's no point in forcing a leader to do videos or things like that if that is not their best medium. If they're uncomfortable on video, then no one's going to watch it, right? So have a think with your leaders. What is the best medium for you to tell those stories? Is it through video? Is it through something like a podcast? Is it the written word? Is it through photos? There are so many different ways that we can get messages across. And we need to make sure not only that we're hitting what our employees need, but we're making sure that our leaders are also comfortable, because with that comfort will come that genuine, real person that we want to see as employees.
That's such a good point, because there is nothing more unauthentic and like cringeworthy almost watching, your employee, your leader doing a TikTok who's clearly uncomfortable, who's like, this is not, it's almost like you're trying too hard. And that really does read across, your workforce. We have 5 minutes left. So if there's any questions, please ask them now. Imogen, I did want to I know we discussed this a little bit, and you highlighted something I think was so beneficial to this conversation in terms of technology, right? Because I'm the same way. When we think about generational gaps, the number one thing I think about is, okay, how do we get each generation on new technologies and things coming in? How do we also stay current? But you mentioned something so important about when it comes to technology and generational gaps. And I just want to touch on that. When we talk about tools and platforms and getting those on board, can you describe to our audience what you described to me is like what you think that plays in this whole challenge, if that makes sense.
If I can remember what I said, absolutely. I think when it comes to new technologies, new platforms, communicators, we are bad people for chasing shiny things. We do this a lot. We're like, right, we want that new tech because it's new and it's pretty and shiny. And then suddenly we have a plethora of tools and platforms that we don't track well enough to know who's using it for what and when. So when it comes to technology, for platforms, when we're looking to enhance collaboration and productivity amongst teams, funnily enough, it depends. So it depends on who that team is and how they work. If you've got a team on shop floor, then videos on your intranet and an intranet full stop probably not going to work, because when do they have time to go there? So there are different ways that team needs to work and communicate within each other in order to be productive. So we need to kind of offer a suite of options, I think. And this is where comms needs to collaborate with our IT departments to make sure there is a suite of options available. But, do we like to use Mural maybe, or Trello, or there are so many out there for collaboration, but it depends on how you work and how that team is made. If you have people who are completely remote, then you're going to think about, okay, so how can we have an option where we can get in touch with people quickly for short questions, but then we need something for more thinking time from different places around the world, for example. If you're all in the office, then you may not need that kind of collaboration online because you're in the office to do it together. If you're on the shop floor, we need to be able to get hold of people quickly, but it needs to be short and needs to be really simple. How do we do that? Is it through WhatsApp groups? Is it through posters in the break room? Even going back to the simplest of communications channels and platforms that we have. But it needs to be something that the team works out. The team figures out how do they work best together. And then we are able to offer a suite of different platforms that they can use.
No, I love that. And it's not about the tool, it's about how you're using it and how it results to your comm strategy. So I love when you said that in our planning call, and I was like, I think that's such great insight to give to our audience. Daphne had a question. Clearly the best data is gleaned by asking employees, but as a starting point, are there any reports or pieces of insight that's already tracking communication preferences by generation that you'd recommend?
Tough question, Daphne. Thank you. Put me on the spot a little bit and prove that I haven't done all the reading I should have. I think the big research agencies, your kind of state of the sector reports, your Kantars, your Deloitte's, your Ernst and Young's, those kind of big research agencies who are putting out reports and data, a lot of which you can get for free or behind sort of a sort of gated, give them your email and then block them. But all of those big companies are doing research into this. I always find Harvard Business Review is brilliant for things like this. So it's just a question of where do you like to get which information do you trust? Mm-hmm. Which data do you trust? Where do you normally find your insights? I would imagine that membership organizations, CIPR, IOIC, IABC, number of acronyms, they are all doing research in this as well. So if you have membership to a membership org, maybe dig around in their files as well and see what you can find. But off the top of my head, I don't have like one magic bullet for you, I'm afraid.
And there's so many things. I think, Daphne, I know at Staffbase, just looking at the analytics and the data of just something so quickly as like who's clicking on an email, who's watching this video, how long are they watching, and running an internal report is also, very important. But Imogen, like you said, it's who you trust. There's so many good things out there and so many good reports. But yeah, I can't believe I knew this was going to happen. I knew this session was going to fly. Imogen, it's always a pleasure having you on our events. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was such a great session. And anybody who wants to, watch our other Comms Club lives, please follow us on LinkedIn to stay up to date on our digital events and live events. But yeah, Imogen, is there anything you want to say to the audience before we sign out?
No, I think, I would just always leave with, if you have questions and you're not sure what your employees want, I would always just ask them the question, and don't be afraid of asking the question as long as you can do something with that data.
I love that. And you can, Destiny about LinkedIn, you can connect with myself or Imogen on this event. Our links are right there. So thanks everyone and have a lovely Wednesday.
Thanks very much. Bye.